Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode is the Instagram Live number 13, I reckon. So I've had a few questions come in from the post I did on Thursday. So we'll go through them now. If you have any questions, chuck them down the bottom and I'll answer them as I see them. And if you don't stick around for the whole Instagram Live, this episode will be a podcast. It'll come out on Thursday. In a few days. And coming out tomorrow is Adam Robinson from Adam Robinson Design, based in Sydney. So that'll be a good one for the designers as well, a couple in a row. And then next week, I've got Cam Frieden from Peninsula Stonemasons. So that's a pretty cool chat as well. And then I've got to start organising some more guests because that's all I've got booked at the moment. So we're looking to do that starting tomorrow. I'll message anyone. So the first question was, what was your favourite part about the garden show build? So I had a few, as I've said a couple of times, I was standing out the front the whole time, but I've had a few people ask that. And for the first couple of days, I couldn't specify a certain part of it because I just loved the whole thing. And then if you're watching this on the YouTube channel when it comes out, you'll see my background has now changed. It's not Palm Beach or the ball bag gauge design that we built. It's the garden show build. Not quite to scale, so I look like I'm in the garden bed hanging out with the bees, but it also makes, because I used one of the photos from Dan Cusack that he sent me, so the quality of the photo is amazing, and then my camera on the laptop is horrendous, so it makes it look even worse, but it's a good photo for the background anyway. So I was telling everyone my favourite part of it was that I couldn't pick one because I just loved the whole lot of it. But then the more I looked at it, the more I wanted to look at the photos and everything. This bathroom area was probably the favourite part of it. I just liked the way the water feature had the rain effect going into the concrete bath with the. I wanted to have the mirror behind it floating along with the basin, and that came out exactly how I planned it. And then I did a post. I don't know if it was a post or a story the other day. Showing how the 3D render looked compared to the actual real garden, and it was pretty cool how similar they were. So, that was probably my favourite. And then seeing everyone's posts about the garden, there's like standing on that front left corner, looking through the olive at the bathroom area. That was a sort of the money shot favourite photo part of that. Cam from Abcam Horticulture has got a couple of questions. What dictates planning trends at the garden show? Is it somehow dictated by the grower stock list? For example, this year there was a lot of Rudbeckia and Ace of Crimson Century. Last year there was a lot of Ligularia. So it does have a bit to do with what the growers have got, because obviously everyone wants to get. You can't plant something, or you can't use a plant that's going to look good in a few months. You need it to be looking good straight away. So a lot of people are going to use the same plants if they're looking amazing. And coincidentally, the one plant that he's picked out, the Rudbeckia, is the only one that I didn't choose. That and the Persicaria are the ones I didn't choose to have in the garden. Well, I did eventually, but they weren't on my original list. So Chris from Chartwell Nurseries grew them in bigger pots just in case I wanted them, and they were looking so amazing that I did put them in. And then it turns out a few other people used the Rudbeckias as well, just because they added a big splash of colour. And were looking amazing at that time of year. And it's the same like with the Ligularia, like they look good all year round, so they're just like easy filler to go in. So a lot of people will use the same plants because they look good that time of year. If it was in spring, you got more options to choose from. That'll look like flowering, looking good, but being in autumn, you're kind of limited. Hydrangeas are kind of starting to finish, so you haven't got a lot of them you can choose from. But yeah. There's no trends. It's not like we have a meeting and say these are the plants we're going to use or anything like that. So a lot of the plants are just what looks good at the time. What are they? The Miscanthus. They started to become popular a couple of years ago and only increasing in popularity. Just things come in waves like that. I reckon the Agastachys they were quite prominent this year as well, and I reckon that's going to continue because the bees were loving them as well. So anything that's bringing the bees in is a good thing. Be interesting to see if Persicaria gets especially the one that I used, Persicaria Lisan, if that gets a bit of a run, more of a run next year. So because that was, like, I'm 99% sure mine was the only garden that had it, and that was because of Chris at Chartwell Nurseries growing them on for us. So it'd be interesting to see what continues on next year and then what the new trends are going forward. But it's a pretty good place to see different plants that you might not have known of. And his other question was, do you think your logo colors set you apart from other businesses, like not using green, and therefore are more identifiable and stand out from the crowd and possibly win more work? So I do think that they set me apart from other businesses, but that's because it looks like a logo from the 1980s. Like, I think it's a horrendous logo, and like, I didn't think that like back when I started working for the business, but like, I started working for InStyle in 2006, so it was 17 years ago, if my maths is correct, and it had been going for maybe 4 or 5 years already before then. So the logo's over 20 years old and it hasn't changed since it was developed. So it's kind of like an older looking logo to start with. So it hasn't aged well at all. So I think it's a terrible looking logo, but it just goes to show that your logo doesn't mean a hell of a lot. It more comes down to the type of business that you are and your reputation. And it's the same with the business name. So the logo and the business name are important when you're first starting out, because that's the only way people are going to know that you exist and know that you know your name. Like, there's no point calling yourself Timber Landscapes if you only do paving. Like, you'd want something that's more descriptive about what you do. It's the same with the logo. You don't want to have a logo of some bricks or pavers if you only do garden maintenance. Like, so you want it, so early on it matters, but it doesn't matter once you build your reputation and people know your name for doing good work, because people are just going to use you regardless of what you call it. And I was messaging Cam, and I gave him a good example of Apple, like the iPhones and that sort of thing. So, like, Apple is not a good business name, but now it is. But when they started it, it was just it's just a fruit. So it's a good example of how it doesn't matter. And same with the logo. Like, the logo means nothing compared to what their business is. There might be some weird meaning behind it that does relate to it, but no, I don't think it means anything. And I don't think the colors of mine are terrible as well. It's just brown and gold. Just, there's nothing positive about it. Like, it's different, but I don't think it makes a single difference. In saying that, we might be missing out on work because such people look at our logo and think these guys have got no idea what modern things would be like because they're still living in the 80s with their logo. But no client has ever said they picked us because of our logo. So I don't think it makes a difference eventually. And I don't know what sort of time frame, like when it stops making a difference, because it will probably be different for every business, but it's not as important as what a lot of people think. Like, I've thought of changing it, but I thought, what's the point in spending money on changing it? Because we've still got a lot of work booked in anyway. So, got a question from Steve Nyland. Do you see yourself and your business ever being predominantly design or always doing both design and construction? I reckon it will be predominantly design eventually, because I am very much a hands-on person in terms of construction, so I need to have my finger in every pie in that regard, and I hate having to rely on other contractors because I've found they're unreliable. So it's hard to be able to let go of things and get other people to do things to the quality that I want them done. So at the moment I'm in and out doing some construction, some design, but I've got people who are doing just design and people who are doing just construction. So they're sort of in that area, but eventually it will probably just be just design, unless I can find some superstar design construction people who can run projects and I can let go of it. But I can't see how many years away that will be. I'll be doing construction for as long as I can because that's my favorite part of it. But the more I do design, the more I'm starting to love it. And you also need to, what I found I need to do is do one for a stretch of time. Like, I can't do 1 day of design and 1 day of construction and chop and change. You need to do sort of blocks of at least 2 or 3 days of the one. So when things get more under control and we're not completely overwhelmed with work, then I can set days apart. I'll have something more structured where I'll do that. So it'll be 2 days a week. So it might be Monday, Tuesday, I'll do design. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, construction, something like that. But and then we can sort of, control your projects around those. But at the moment, doing both and loving it. But down the track, I reckon it will be purely design, because that's something I can do longer as my body starts to break down. Dan Scrapes, so Dan Foreman said, is MIFGS the landscaping gardening version of a triathlon? I reckon that's quite a good analogy of it. And I did say to him, because I don't know, anyone who follows Dan will have seen that he moved some massive 4.2 meter monster sleeper with a cable drum, moving it around like they would have done with some pyramids. So I said to him that moving sleepers using cable drums is like the Arnold Classic of landscaping. But yeah, it's quite a fair old stretch of doing hard work. Like today is Easter Sunday, so happy Easter everyone who's in life. But today's the first day I've had off since the 19th of March, I think. So probably like 3 weeks, maybe a bit more. So that's when we started working on the garden show. So I was probably working the week before that as well, but all the days turned into a blur. But yeah, worked Friday and Saturday at my house building a fence. So today's the first day I've had off. I found that when I stop, that's when my body starts to hurt. So it's good to keep going. But it's feeling pretty good today. So mustn't be doing too bad. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of effort goes into doing the garden show. But just like when you do a triathlon, it's really hard while you're doing it. But then you look back and it's a massive achievement. So I think that's a good analogy. And you do need to do a lot of planning / training to get into it. Deals 620 said, do you think the garden show should have a day for trade only or Landscape Victoria members to visit? I don't think so, because I think it would be just a bit too quiet, because there's not that many. Like, there's a lot of people in the trade and Landscape Victoria members and other industry association members who do go, but it's not going to work out well for everyone to go on the same day. So some people, might want to go on the weekend, so they don't want to take time off during the week. And it's if you go on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of it aren't that as busy as what the weekends are. So I find most people go on the Wednesday who are trade related. So that, I think it used to be a bit of they used to say it was a trade day. I don't know if that did used to happen, that it was open to trade the first day and then open to the public after that. But that would have been at least 13 years ago if that was the case. But yeah, I reckon if you're in the trade and you're wanting to go and it's a bit quieter, Wednesday will be the best day to go. And then it gradually gets busier from there. And in the afternoon, like 2:30, 3 o'clock onwards, it starts to get quiet. So if you're not wanting crowds, that's a good time to go any day, really, any of the 5 days. But I don't think it needs to be a necessary day like that. And you can't do it any earlier because everyone's sort of working to get it finished at the right time. So it's not like everyone's going to finish a day early just to let all the trade people in. But yeah, I don't think there's not enough people involved. There's not enough people in the industry to make it worthwhile doing that, I don't think either. And Steve's got another question, said, was there anything at MIFGS build or design wise that blew your mind? So I had my favourite garden to look at was the one by Bronnie Skinner, called, I think it was Duality. So it was one of the boutique gardens, and it didn't finish in the top 3. But I just looked at it and was blown away how beautiful it was. It was one with some succulents from Cactus Country, and then it was like a sort of South American theme. Had like the arched door in the background and the big, like the little brother of my olive, the cloud pruned olive from Warner's. But yeah, every time I walked past it, I was getting blown away how awesome it looked. So yeah, that blew my mind with how stunning it was. Just just an amazing looking garden. But yeah, other than that, nothing. Yeah, I was impressed with how awesome all the gardens were. Like sometimes you look at a couple and think, oh, those ones are a bit rough, but literally none of them were like that. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. Next question from Peter Donegan. He says, is Peter Donegan better looking to the James Bond theme tune or in real life? So that's in relation to a little promo that they did for Peugeot with the garden show. So I'll do a link to that Instagram reel in the comments or notes section of this podcast. So if you're listening live, you won't be able to see it yet. But if you go to the Melbourne Flower Show Instagram page, you'll see Peter getting out of a Peugeot on one of the mornings, and it was a very slick production. I was very impressed. I told him I didn't think he did it in first film, but he reckons it was only one take. But he's definitely better looking with the James Bond theme music, and probably any theme music than in real life. But yeah, he was a lot of fun to have at the garden show. It was a great character to have there, and so hopefully there's more people like him next year. I've got one from Creative Living Projects. What's your process to existing soil in preparation for planting? So I've said a couple of times I don't do enough in terms of soil preparation. So if it's a real bad clay, we'll put some gypsum in there and turn the soil over as much as we can, but it just turned into a big mess. And if it's in sand, we'll add some organic matter to it. Like we'll always add some pretty good quality garden blend soil, which has got some good organic matter in it. But don't do enough. Like I don't do any pH testing or anything like that. So there's certainly a lot of room for improvement there and what could be done. But we do still get good results with the work that we do in terms of the plant growth. So we do drainage as well. I'll do a fair bit of that. But it's tricky when there's trees going in there, and because you've got to put the drainage down pretty low, and then you'll have to end up putting a sump pit in and it gets quite expensive to put drainage in the garden beds. So if they don't need it, that's ideal, because you obviously also want to keep the water in the garden beds for a certain while, so you're not having to add additional irrigation to it. But in terms of soil improvement, probably not enough. But we also use composted mulch a fair bit as well, which sort of feeds the soil as it breaks down. So we do a little bit. It's not just like we're putting loam in the garden beds and just red gum chips as the mulch. But yeah, there's always room for improvement in that area. There's always room for improvement in soil improvement. And it's gonna be a short one today, but that's okay, because it is Easter Sunday and these are nice short episodes. The last question from Logan Kuka. What's the best business advice you can give someone just starting their business? So honestly, listening to the landscaping podcast and the front garden podcast and the full landscape would be a good recommendation. So having all the people who are on these podcasts and the advice they give is invaluable. So you can listen to someone who's been in business for 30 years and work out what they did when they started and how it was wrong, so what they would have done differently. And whether you're wanting to do construction or design or maintenance or all of it, you're gonna find someone who has done the same thing that you're wanting to be doing. So I reckon that's a good place to start, which I assume you are doing. And also listening to the advice you are given. So it can be a bit tricky, because you're going to get a lot of advice, and it could be different advice that contradicts each other if you get it from different people. But there's stuff I was told from my accountant early on. Like they told me to start a YouTube channel, I reckon 12 years ago. So that would have been good if I had done that, because you would have built a lot of an audience back when there was less noise coming out of the YouTube area. But they also told me to start a separate account for pay-as-you-go and GST to go into. So when you're paying your employees, you put the tax in the pay-as-you-go account, so then you pay it at the end of the quarter or the month, depending on how you pay. And the same with the BAS. When you get money coming in, put your 10% or 5%, whatever you'd want to put in there. So it's good to do that. So have those separate accounts. And there's a system called Profit First, where they do similar things like that. You pay yourself and put your money into the profit account first, and then so you separate your money, so you know what your transaction account, how much money you've actually got to spend, because you can see money in your account and think, oh, I'm doing okay, but you actually haven't got that much you can spend in there. So definitely work on the financial side of things. That's just as important as laying pavers properly, is having the business being able to be operational in terms of cash flow and financial point of view. Another bit of advice would be to have relationships with other landscapers. So if they're quiet, they can you can give them some work. If you've got some leftover, like if you've got some inquiries coming your way that you can't take on, you can send them their way, and vice versa. If you're doing a big concrete pour, you can give each other a hand. If you're doing designs, you can help out. If you've got a large commercial one, it's good to have a lot of contacts. So join your association and go to meetings when they're available, even if the particular topic that they're talking about isn't that interesting. At least go there, so you're creating contact with other people in the industry to make those contacts and go there, not trying to get work out of it, but just trying to meet people, and then it will just happen organically anyway. But yeah, there's a lot that you would do early in the business, but none of it is complex or hard. It just takes a little bit of effort to. It's like if you go for a run each morning, it's not that hard, but you just got to take the first couple of steps to do it, and then once you do it, you're out running, and then it's all pretty easy from there. So it's just taking that first step to do these things, like setting up the accounts and putting money in there. Just do that, and then and you'll reap the rewards. Stone Lab NZ said, what type of natural stone do you like laying, i.e. pool copings and pavers? I reckon travertine and limestone are my two favourites at the moment. So I've got some used travertine at the garden show. You're watching the YouTube, you can see it behind me, the beautiful travertine from Granite Works, which the colours of it are beautiful. Just seeing because there's so much variation in the colour, sort of creams and browns, and then the limestone on the ground as well. Again, it's not just the one colour. So I like that when you're using natural stone, the variation in the colour of the same paver. And Dan Foreman has just put in a comment there that's thrown me. What was I talking about? The paving. So yeah, limestone I love using around pools, particularly grey limestone. So that's what we used on the paving of the entertaining area of the garden show build, and that's what I'm using at my house on the driveway as well that we're building. And then I'm going to be using some grey crazy paving around the back. And Peter Donegan has joined as well, but he's going to have to listen to the podcast episode if he wants to hear the answer to his question. It's a bit too late. But that's it for today. So have everyone had a great Easter, and I'll put in another question box during the week. So it'd be good to get some more questions again, because I do enjoy doing this, and it's good hearing a lot of people getting value out of it as well, which is more important. So thank you very much for everyone who tuned in. This week's episode with Adam Robinson and then Cam Frieden next week. So if you've got any questions before I put the question box out, feel free to shoot me a message. Otherwise, you can do it when I put it out, and we'll see you next week.